So ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's deep dive into the next conversation featuring none other than Mr. Chetan Krishnaswamy, Vice President, Amazon. And we have the august presence of Shri P. Vasudevan, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India. So ladies and gentlemen, our very first session that we were supposed to host, but we are doing it right now. And with that, we have with us Shri P. Vasudevan, Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chetan Krishnaswamy, Vice President, Amazon. Can we have a huge round of applause? We're talking about the best practices and the common pitfalls as we navigate the fintech landscape. Thank you so much for joining us. And with that, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. At last, we are here, after multiple false starts. At the outset, I'd like to very quickly introduce Mr. Vasudevan, the Executive Director of the Reserve Bank of India. He has nearly 3 decades of experience at the RBI, and today is responsible for the departments of Fintech, Currency Management, and Corporate Strategy and Budget. He has been a key figure in India's Fintech leadership story and has largely been responsible for the implementation of cutting-edge technologies and various regulatory innovations, including the implementation of RBI's regulatory sandbox and, of course, the establishment of the RBI Innovation Hub. Very clearly, before we began, he said, keep the intro really, really short, and I hope I have lived up to that expectation. And now, sir, over to you for some opening comments.
Thank you, Chetan. Nice to be on the GFF stage. And being with Chetan sometimes can be a little dicey because he is typically comfortable or aware about what the regulator thinks. Sometimes he also thinks for the regulator as well. So it's going to be tough to be with him. But Chetan, just I wanted to ask you as well, do you mind me standing there and talking, or do you want me to sit and
Sure,
talk?
please go ahead.
Okay, then I think I'll go to the podium and talk, and then I'll come back.
Please.
Yeah, once again, good morning, everyone. As you see, I have no written agenda. I thought I'll spend some time talking to you about what's happening in the fintech space and what do we talk about when we are navigating the fintech landscape and the best practices and common pitfalls. I thought, given the short time we have seen the fintechs in the country, and given the shorter time I have been with the fintechs, I would like not to talk about the pitfalls or even about the challenges, but best practices. Rather, I would like to spend some time about what the learnings have been, how have been the experience, and what could be some things that we can all take away from. And as I have always been saying, we also are learning, we also are evolving in terms of regulatory practices. When you look at the financial system, the confidence that the people will get in terms of handling money, in terms of handling payments, they are very critical for ensuring monetary policy transmission and also the financial stability of the system. And for people to get that confidence, they have to be empowered, they have to be entitled as well, be they individuals or be they institutions. They have to be entitled and they have to be enabled. And this comes with a lot of responsibilities when you want these entitlements and empowerments in terms of respect for the structures that are there, in terms of certain practices that need to be followed. Because you are all interacting with a space that is the financial sector, the financial services. If you look at the entire ecosystem, any sector, the financial services sector is one of the tightly regulated and closely supervised sector. And if anybody else has to interact with this sector, they also have to follow certain rules, certain expectations, because we cannot have those disruptions because we will end up losing the public trust and confidence. Ultimately, it's all about money. So over a period of time, when you see the practices that have happened, we have to also appreciate the expectations from the other side when we deal. For example, you would have heard about Mr. Nandan Nilekani speaking yesterday, or even Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan talking yesterday, about how the regulatory interventions have also been successful in heralding innovations in the Indian context, and how many of the initiatives have been to a large extent regulator-led as well. So we do think that probably the regulator also has a critical role to play in this. When we look at some of the people who want to get regulated, it's a very funny thing. When they are not in a regulatory space, some of the sectors were not regulated when we look at payments or even fintechs. When we call somebody for a discussion, nobody will bother. They will be sending a level 3 or level 4 person, and they will say that we are too busy. But when they want to get regulated, they want to come too close, it becomes difficult and disturbing for us as well. And post getting regulated, again, it's difficult to access them. So it's a very interesting thing. And some of the people who want to get regulated, they take a registration or a certificate of authorization. And we also see that they are yet to start the business. When we ask them why, they end up saying that we are still reimagining and evolving our business practices, so give us some more time. We don't give a license to chill, okay? We give a license to operate. So you have to be mindful of that when you want to come into the space. And many of the people who want to be in, you are typically seeing a herd mentality. If some set of people are coming in, everybody tries to follow. Many of the recent sectors that have been brought into regulation, if you see, so many people are operating, and over a period of time, it is becoming a sort of a competition among themselves. Normally, when we have those partnerships, we are looking at a partnership and collaboration and competition with the banks. But here, it's among the entities themselves that these partnerships are, the competition is happening. So that's becoming a little difficult in terms of numbers that we need to. So I have always been saying that please, as an industry, you look at how many entities should be there in a particular space. You can also discuss among yourselves and how much we can afford. So probably the SRO announcement that was made yesterday could be one more step in the direction where we can have these discussions, and probably the players can also discuss among themselves and see how the sectors can come up. When we saw the announcements happening yesterday, when we have been seeing certain developments, one thing is coming to the fore very clear, that is that everything is going to be now platformized. Platforms are going to be the essence of the future, be it for the Bharat Bill Pay, be it for earlier P2P lending, be it for the trades, etc. Everything is going to be platformized. And as we go ahead, we are also going to see the interoperability between the platforms. Again, we saw one more announcement yesterday about how trades and BBPS can get interlinked. We are going to see this interlinking between maybe today UPI and tomorrow ULI as well. So those platforms are going to be the essence for everything. And when we have those platforms coming in, we are also going to see what we call as packetization. The events, the activities, the exposures, the experiences are all going to become smaller and smaller. So platformization, packetization, you have to be ready. And what I also want to add, another P is about peopleization, what we call as democratization. We call it as peopleization because ultimately the entire effort of everyone is to see that we are customer-centric, and we do all our initiatives that are customer-centric in nature. So all these three Ps are essential. And as we develop these packages, one mention was made by the governor as part of his talk about how we can have these plug-and-play solutions that can be developed and transported to other jurisdictions as well. So these couple of Ps are very critical for our pieces to work together and our systems to work in a harmonized manner. When we are looking at some of the expectations of the players as well, they try to, for example, expect harmonization across regulators as well. You are actually operating within the country as well across multiple regulators because the players are also moving between, say, payments, maybe lending, then they're going to wealth management, then they're also trying to get into insurance, etc., sectors. So harmonization across regulators is also one expectation. That's going to be very difficult because each of the regulators have their own jurisdictions and set of concerns that need to be addressed. So harmonization is one thing you will have to manage, you don't expect others to manage. And especially when we are looking at other territories to be added as we go forward, especially interlinking fast payment systems, Again, one more mention was being made yesterday about how many jurisdictions are there where our systems could go. So we are providing a platform that's easily available to you. If you are well established here, probably you could be easily transported, or you could be also exploring other jurisdictions as well. That's very critical. You would also have heard me speak in the morning when the member of the board of the Fed Reserve was here. He was a little apprehensive about some of the issues that need to be sorted out before we can look at interlinking, say, the Fed now and UPI. And we were trying to be very positive, saying that even if it takes a little time, it's going to be worthwhile because many things are going to be cheaper and faster. That's how we are going to work about, and that's how we are going to go in. So I would like you to have this approach when you are looking at regulation. So whenever we are trying to deal with structures, I would like you to also think that you have to respect the compliance-related things. I agree in the dictionary, capital comes first and the compliance comes later. So capital, of course, you are all very, very comfortable handling with your investors and venture capitalists. Any of their requirements, you are more than eager to meet. But that doesn't mean that you can actually ignore or bypass compliance. No, that's equally important. So sometimes when we meet the venture capitalists and even those co-founders as well, we tell them very clearly that please imbibe this element of compliance in your invested entities. See that compliance is never compromised irrespective of the scale. Incidentally, you know, like we have been having plenty of interactions with the industry. A number was again being mentioned about 700 plus bilateral, 50 plus such group interactions we have been having in the last 1 year or so. As we come closer to the industry, you know, familiarity breeds consent. That's how it's happening. People can think that they can get anything and they can ask anything. Yesterday, I was just walking around in the stall and I happened to meet two youngsters who came and immediately saw the badge and said, "Sir, we want to ask you a question." I said, "Yeah, do I know you?" They said, "No." Then they said, "Sir, what do you think are the areas in which we should enter into?" I would have been very happy to say, why don't you go to Lamington Road area or go to Koramangala area? But I just said, that's not the purpose. No, you should be having your ideas. You should be trying to know where you have to go. Asking us, okay, we are here to interact with you, but we have to be also mindful of some of those things, because internally you have to look at many of those areas where you want to get into. As I said, no, some people are saying that after getting the authorization that we are trying to reimagine, re-engineer our business practices and then decide where to go. It doesn't work. We are also trying to see that the ease of regulation is available, the compliance costs do not impact much, bring in a level playing field between the formal traditional lenders and the fintechs as well. We have tried to see, for example, one announcement was made yesterday that if you are having a payment aggregator requirement, you don't have a separate approval going forward for online, offline, cross-border, etc. It could be one. Probably going forward, we can look at having one single authorization for any of the payment system activities we are doing. So these are the things that can be facilitated going forward. For that, we need to come together. We need to have those interactions as well. But we should also understand, as part of the landscape, what is that we are looking at? You would have also heard about the repositories that are in place. I will be happy to get inputs from the industry about what are the initiatives they are doing, where they would like to get support. But that is taking some time. Probably the industry is yet to feel comfortable to come close. But let me assure you, we are as a part of you as much you think you have your fraternity with you. We are also a progressive regulator. We also want to be a progressive stakeholder in all these initiatives, because it's going to be a long journey together, and let's have a nice journey together as well. I thought I can spend a little more time talking, but I know that Chetan has lined up lots of questions. I'll take them, and then as we go ahead, let us see where we navigate the landscape and how we navigate as well. I stop here. Chetan, I come back to the table.
Thanks a lot for giving us those very interesting perspectives and taking us through the real-life experiences that you had during the course of your interaction with the industry. And you know, what really struck me were the 3 P's: platformization, packetization, and peopleization. You know, and obviously that would be the essence and the future of the fintech industry in this country, is what you said. You also mentioned about the need for regulators to be progressive, and perhaps RBI in many ways exemplifies that attribute. Right off the bat, my question would be, how do you bring about a fine balance in ensuring that there is regulation, there is sort of oversight in many ways, but at the same time, you need to also foster and spawn innovation. What is RBI's sort of game plan when it comes to this?
Yeah, but many a time, thanks Chetan for raising this, because many a time this question gets asked, like, is the regulation and innovation, how do you have a fine balance? But why do you always think that if there is regulation, then innovation could be stifled? No, we have to have an orderly growth, and that can actually facilitate innovation. For example, I can take a couple of initiatives. In the payment space, we had one small, like we always approach everything with a customer-centric approach. So one of the things we said was, okay, let's have a facility where the customer could switch on and switch off the card feature so that he is not scammed or his balances do not get used. And that also has led to many innovations happening. Many of the players have actually had a good clientele because of these things, because the banks and other card issuers need to have this facility. So also with the e-mandates, now everywhere we are talking about e-mandates, and the mandates are 10x, 15x in terms of numbers year on year. So there again, innovations have come in. Many more things can be built upon that. And so also tokenization. Now, I still feel, I don't know how Amazon feels, but I still feel that the card data that was stored is now democratized because it's in the form of tokens. And we are, touch wood, not seeing any breach, even when we are seeing some data leaks happening in terms of card data being lost. So many other innovations have developed on this. We had like mention about ULI, Unified Lending Interface, that could be becoming bigger than, say, UPI. And tomorrow, if UPI and ULI interact together, again, the innovations are going to happen. So I agree, there are concerns about regulation coming in terms of breeding innovation. See, one of the things I'll tell you, we had an interaction with a couple of fintechs who are in a particular space. When we asked them that we are not happy with some of the things which you are doing, they said, sorry, sir, we were thinking that this is a market practice, and we were following a market practice. Now, if you are the number one or number two in that particular market, and if there's a framework that has to be followed, and if you still feel that market practices swayed whatever you want to do, that's simply unacceptable. So market practices need to be dovetailed into the framework, and that cannot be something that you can decide or the market can decide. So I'm saying innovations are good, but there's a framework.
Oh, absolutely, and you kind of reinforce the need for compliance to be absolutely critical in the overall strategy of a business that is growing. Very quickly now, talking about ULI. We've had the governor also make a mention of it. And he, in fact, went on to say that the next big thing would be ULI. And in the MSME space today, there is nearly a $300 billion gap that exists in terms of credit. And perhaps ULI is a terrific opportunity for that gap to be plugged. Can you give us more details on what the thinking is on ULI?
See, actually, ULI will bring in multiple stakeholders on one platform, be they on the lender side, the traditional lenders, and be they on the people who need the finances, be they on the types of loan that could be made available, be they in terms of the data sources that need to be accessed to make a borrower viable or be acceptable for a loan. There could be, as of now, 50 types of data sources being mentioned. You are aware that GSTN also has been added. Of course, Aadhaar, multiple land records of state governments. Then we have milk pouring data. Many data sources are now linked to the platform. But more importantly, I want to say that we have been having this project for the last 15, 16 months now. And we have seen almost 1.5 lakh loans already being dispersed, and many of the people who are borrowing, and the majority of the loans presently are by the MSMEs. If you want a micro business loan, if you want an education loan, if you want a housing loan, if you want a tractor loan, dairy loan, I can go on and on. All these are possible from the platform. And there are many more things that are going to come when we look at the benefits, but I just want to take that point about MSMEs. See, if you see the requirement of MSMEs, we have tried to bring in different innovatives and initiatives to facilitate the credit for them. See, MSMEs have certain problems in terms of availability of collateral, delayed payments, and of course availability of finance as well. So for the availability of finance part, we have the TREDS platform. The TREDS platform are doing wonderfully well. 4 platforms are there. 2018, the guidelines were announced. Over the last 5 to 6 years, CAGR is around 60% in terms of volume of invoices or factoring units, and around 85% in terms of value of units financed. 16,000 crore is the latest number I have during a month. There, what happens is that if I am a MSME seller and I give it to, say, a buyer on Amazon, now here we are looking at corporate buyers who are good buyers, big buyers. The rating is on the buyer, not on the seller. And the finance is also without recourse to the seller. And we can have a bid happening across any of those lenders who are there, banks, tractors. They can come and bid for the loan. The loan is my prerogative to accept or not to accept at what rate of interest. That's trades. If you are talking about delayed payments, this can be taken care of because the money will have to be paid by the buyer on the due date, but the lender can, the seller can get the money early. And we have recently enabled more features on the TREDS platform by way of offloading. If a financier has taken exposure, he can offload it to others on the platform. We have brought an insurance so that the financier will be comfortable to give the money. And we have also allowed many other features to come in on the TREDS platform. So we are going to see an increase. Hopefully going forward, the TREDS platforms could be interoperable among themselves as well. And with this BBPS linkage happening, Bharat will pay for business, more things are happening. And you just mentioned a little while earlier about regulatory sandbox. We had a regulatory sandbox for MSME payments as well. Multiple features have come out. And then they are trying to digitize the invoices, bringing blockchain as one element where people can actually have a consent-based mechanism. So MSMEs are going to enjoy a comfort. And one of the one of the findings was about GST Sahay that has come in to take care of this aspect of not available, having enough collateral. The cash flow lending has been enabled. You can actually have the GST linkage. We can have the account aggregator linkage. All these linkages can provide a nice platform for the MSMEs to borrow without availability of collateral. So delayed payments, collateral, availability of finance are also being taken care of. So we are conscious of these benefits required and available to the MSMEs.
Sure. On the topic of regulatory sandbox that you just mentioned, and in fact, you were a key proponent of the sandbox. And in fact, the RBI also entered into international partnerships with the Singapore Monetary Authority, et cetera, et cetera. So what have been some of the outcomes, successful outcomes, of this sort of experiment?
Yeah, see, on the regulatory sandbox, we started somewhere in 2021. We have had 5 cohorts. 5th cohort is currently live. We started with retail payments, went to cross-border payments, we went to MSME, as I was mentioning, then we went into prevention and mitigation of financial frauds. Now we have a theme-neutral cohort as well. And it is very nice to see the ideas that come into these cohorts. And maybe around 30, 35 entities were there who had their solutions being tested. 18 successful exits have also happened. Interesting part is the partnerships they try to bring in with the banks and other things, and request for some regulatory relaxations to be given as part of the sandbox. And we have not been hesitant, or we have not been refusing. We have given a lot of regulatory concessions, especially in cross-border space, where typically you have to collect the export proceeds. There were certain initiatives where people said that we would like to pre-fund that as well, so that the money that is lying abroad could be used for overseas payments as well. That's a wonderful thing. And if you would have been seeing some of the mention about offline payments, and even about the UPI being available for feature phone users, 40 crore of them are feature phone users. That's a thing that came through the cohort as well. And over a period of time, we are conscious of the comforts available to people who are part of this sandbox. So initially, we had a higher level of threshold for anybody to come in. We reduced the threshold in terms of net worth for participating. we said that you can choose what you want to bring in. So initially we gave those themes. Later we have removed the themes as well. You can bring in your theme and participate. And we have also tried to help the, like for example, talking to the banks and saying that why don't you facilitate. So learnings are all very good. There are more initiatives that are on the anvil as well as part of this. We are looking at more blockchain and DLT based solutions also coming up. Fraud is one thing. See, one of the things I want to tell everyone here, request also is that please don't look at the initiatives and benefits that are coming out of the system in terms of how many lenders or how many more customers you have onboarded. Please also look at making use of these platforms for better risk management for the people whom you are partnering with, maybe by way of customer onboarding, tracking, transaction monitoring, better collection mechanisms. So try to see how best you can make the ecosystem safer. Also participate in fraud mitigation, fraud controls that can be there. So all those things are possible in these partnerships. So I would urge people to look at the use of AI, the use of sandboxes from these perspectives as well. So we can continue about the benefits. You please visit the RBI website. Wonderful details are there about each of these cohorts and the benefits that are there. We will continue to push the regulatory sandbox. Just 1 second, you talked about India-Singapore. Yeah, that's one, again, cross-border initiative that we have done. But another thing I would like to highlight is about the interoperable regulatory sandbox. I did mention about the difficulties that are there in harmonizing the requirements across regulators, but in the interoperable sandbox, if somebody has a solution that may transcend 2 regulators, that can still be handled, the principal regulator will take care of talking to the other regulator and getting those things done. So that's one more initiative I would like everyone to try.
No, absolutely. I also noticed that we have just about 4 and odd minutes to go. And the one big thing that the RBI has consistently been talking about, and which all of us are interested in knowing more, is the digital currency. And in 2022, you launched both wholesale as well as retail pilots. Where are we in terms of really making it widespread and proliferating digital currency? Although, there are risks involved in terms of ensuring that the monetary policy, financial stability systems don't get unsettled by kind of arbitrarily bringing into existence. But where are we, and what is RBI's vision and way forward?
Yeah, thanks Chetan for not asking a question about whether we need CBDC when UPI is doing so good. I'm very happy because most questions come about this only. But I'm happy to tell you that we have been...
It was going to be my next one, but you...
I have preempted your question, so thank you. No, but what we have tried to do is to be on the learning scale as well. See, when we were talking about blockchain and other recent emerging technologies being available, we thought let us also try and experiment. That's how CBDC as an experiment came. See, anything that is digital, anything can move faster is very good. We have seen that happening in the digital payments. We are seeing that happening in the digital lending. So why not we also look at moving the currency flows also faster? See, all said and done, in addition to the upscaling of the digital payment systems, the currency volumes in the country are also significantly high, 35 trillion rupees. So if you can just think about a percentage or 2 of that moving faster quickly, it's going to be tremendous. And the CBDC is one way of taking care of that. And CBDC, we also believe it can offer the convenience of cash. So still, if you see in India, around 40 to 50% of people prefer using cash because there are conveniences available. If those conveniences can be made available on the CBDC by way of anonymity, by way of programmability, we will be seeing some use cases that are going to be launched where you can actually use the money, CBDC, like your currency. And of course, even you talk about currency being used, probably we may also have to look at the need for KYC when such wallets are going to be used. How we can de-link bank accounts and CBDC wallets. Those things are a priority for us. And we are also trying to see how we can actually have cross-border interactions where CBDC could be used. And we believe that when we have these cross-border exchanges, the present payment modes could be one way, CBDC could be another way, and both can compete with each other. And when we see the way the merchants get their money with probably a time lag, etc. in the case of normal payment methods, CBDC can help do away with intermediaries. And ultimately, it will be a central bank liability as well. So central bank balance sheet also gets digitized. So digitization is a way forward. And we are willing to learn and we are willing to keep the pilots on because it's going to be a national level project and we need to be doubly sure of what we are doing. One of the things we did as part of the pilot was to scale up the volume significantly during December last year, and that gave us certain insights about how technology is actually having some issue as well, so how we can actually take care of that. So it's going to be a learning project for some time, and probably I will be very happy if everybody is given a CBDC wallet with some money loaded as well. Let them go experiment and enjoy and see what are the benefits of CBDCs.
No, we've just run out of time, but I'll take the liberty of asking just one last question instead of summarizing our conversation and giving closing comments. What do you think of internationalization of our platforms? How do we take it global? There's a lot of thinking on what needs to be done. So final words from you on this one major strategy that RBI and the government of India seem to be jointly pushing.
So you have heard many mention about how UPI is being internationalized. Many of the countries are already using UPI. Mauritius, if you look at Sri Lanka, if you look at Singapore, if you look at more countries that are going to come in. Ultimately, the idea is you carry your mobile in the same app that will be useful for any payment anywhere in the world. That's how we are doing. But more than that, we are also looking at making our RuPay cards international, issuing international cards in currencies that are international on the RuPay front. We are also trying to make our SFMS global. So we are looking at SFMS being available for any of the payment transactions to happen. You are aware that RTGS, NEFT, etc. run on SFMS. And let me also tell you that the volumes that SWIFT processes for international cross-border messages is much lower when compared to the volumes that SFMS processes. So we are trying to see that SFMS could be a way of going global. We are even looking at making our Infinite the network for everybody to use. So it will be a technology stack that we are trying to. Ultimately, probably we'll be very happy to ring fence ourselves from whatever happens elsewhere when we have these technologies available with us. So it's going to be a nice journey together, and all of us will, as I was saying, maybe have more GFF in international locations, maybe have more discussions there, but India will be there everywhere.
Thank you. On that high and optimistic note, I'd like to thank the audience and thank you, sir, for this stimulating conversation.
Thank you for being here even when the regulator is speaking, means that we still have a say. Thank you.